Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special live Thanksgiving episode. Joining me today are two incredible guests. I'm thankful for both of you guys on Thanksgiving, Dr. Tony Hampton and Jeff DeProsperous. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Inspired by you, inspired by Jeff. And I think this is potentially for somebody who is afraid of cancer or is fighting cancer, it could be a game changer. This is not the live stream you just say, I'm going to take a few minutes and look at it. And no, this is one you save for later. You forward to your family members because it could be a game changer for you. And I'm almost certain that that's true. So I encourage everybody that's checking us out. And we thank you for spending time this morning. We are going to try to help you deal with cancer in a way that your clinician probably doesn't know how to. So this is a big deal. If you can't stay the whole time, you got to go get the turkey ready. That's fine. But please come back, circle back, and on one of our channels, share this information. I'm really so happy to be here. I feel so grateful.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
Jeff,
good morning, guys. I just want to say hi. Good morning to Kerry, my best friend on YouTube, and I'm Dr. Hampton. Just good morning to you, and I'm pretty excited to just hear your intro there because I'm excited to after this share this with my family members and my friends and everybody. So thank you very much, Dr. Hampton, for being here today with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you both. So we're streaming to all three of our channels. So you might be watching on Dr. Hampton's channel or Jeff's channel. If you're watching on my channel, Homestead How, I have links in the description below for Dr. Hampton and Jeff's site. So please check them out.
This is my buddy. I want to introduce you to him. This is my buddy Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. What's up?
They say, what's up?
Nothing. Just looking for a piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm in his office. I'm in his office at school. He's my best colleague friend here as a teacher. So I'm boring his room.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got links to each of the channels below. So please follow those. So before we kick this off, I was hoping maybe Dr. Hampton, if you could introduce yourself, maybe share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I'm a family and obesity medicine doctor. I call myself the metabolic health doc. I have a master's in nutrition and functional medicine, which is why I think nutrition, every time I see a patient, whether they break a leg or they have an infection, I'm like nutrition. And my goal in life is to teach the message of healing that can come from metabolic health. And who knew that cancer was a metabolic disease? And we'll talk about that further. So I am grateful to have a platform, my Protecting Your Nest podcast, my YouTube channel. And I just think that we have an obligation when you learn these principles, because I know my medical colleagues don't know much about metabolic health. And so my goal is to be an evangelist, to preach the message, the healing message of metabolic health. And that's why I think this is important before we start our day to celebrate the holidays, to get in front of people. And one more thing I'll say is my mom is a breast cancer survivor. So I remember, must have been when my wife was pregnant with my youngest son. He's 24 now. In fact, I'm in his room recording this, and she was diagnosed with cancer of the breast, and it was very scary. I also want to dedicate this episode to my wife's mom. Her name was Myra. She passed away in her 50s. I'm 55, and she passed away in her 50s from lung cancer. Was not a smoker. And that's what's so elusive about this. You don't have to be a smoker, and we'll talk about that as well. It's all about metabolic health. And so thank you, Kerry, Jeff, just for the opportunity.
Thank you. And Jeff, would you mind giving a bit of your background?
Yes, thanks, guys. My name is Jeff DeProsperous, and I have stage 4 cancer, colon cancer, that's fully metastasized to the liver. In April of 2022, they deemed me inoperable, incurable, palliative, terminally ill. So I did, from May 2022 to May 2023, I did 27 rounds of chemo. I asked for a break. I had June, July, August off, and a little bit of September. I started back up on my chemo regimen September 15th. I'm now up to, just yesterday, I did my 34th round of chemo. I actually have chemo going in me right now. I have a bottle attached with colon cancer. The full chemo is what I get in the hospital. I'm saying it wrong probably, but the chemo I get in the hospital, it's a drip, and then they attach this type of chemo. It's called 5FU, and I carry that around for 46 hours. So tomorrow afternoon I get it removed. Carrie's pushed me to do some grounding add some grounding in my regimen. So I did it this morning, Kerry, and I wasn't as pumped up and energetic, but afterwards I felt great. I did my push-ups and I did my grounding, and I've been a high school phys ed teacher for 21 years, and it's my dream job. And like you, Dr. Hampton, I'm not as educated as you, but I do have a kinesiology background and education degree, and I have been teaching health for the past 20 years to high school students. What I've learned in the past 2 years about nutrition and health and how we treat our bodies, I've realized that I will be approaching in a different manner when I go back to work. And my goal is to go back to work to hopefully kick this cancer's butt and go back to work someday. And I think I really want to. I love my passion is teaching kids. I think Kerry came and visited me, and he realized that I have a passion for coaching lots of sports and teaching kids phys ed and health and nutrition. So I'm really excited to be on today with you guys. It's an absolute privilege. It's always a privilege to be on with Kerry. And you, Dr. Hampton, he introduced me to you when I first met him. I did watch a few of your videos throughout this past summer, but now I'm watching a lot more and I'm tuned in. And I saw that one where you came in the room and everybody was cheering for you in Chicago. And you made a comment. I would make the same thing. My wife doesn't cheer for me when I walk in a room either. So that person that was cheering, they need to talk to my wife too.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Just to give some quick background on me, my name's Kerry. We're filming a documentary called Healing Humanity, and it's about the carnivore diet. But because of Jeff and Jeff's story, we decided to add cancer to it too. I've learned so much from Jeff. We just got back from filming Jeff and his family. We were there for about 5 days in Canada, and it was amazing. I'm so thankful for both of you guys being here on Thanksgiving morning. I said this before, but you got to give credit where due. Dr. Hampton too. Like, you're such a busy person to be able to spend your Thanksgiving morning because you're a good person and you're out there helping people. And Jeff too, with your YouTube channel, man, you're going through stage 4 cancer. You're going through so much, but you're motivated to get out there and share your story and help other people. It's really, really inspiring. I don't know how Jeff, I don't know how you're doing it. So one other quick little backstory is Jeff has done, like you mentioned, 33 rounds of chemo with 5-day fasts for each one of those. And a couple of weeks ago, I said, Jeff, I'm going to do the 5-day fast with you. And I did that. Well, now Jeff's doing an 8-day fast and we're on day 4 now. I decided to do it with Jeff. So this is why I was holding the cup up earlier. Jeff, I got to give you so much credit because, you know, when I did the 5-day fast with you before, I was kind of bragging a little bit. I was like, oh, this was easier because I did a 5-day fast when I was on the standard American diet. But this one was a little easier because I was carnivore into fasting. I was struggling yesterday, and you're here and you're energetic and you're doing this, and you just had chemo yesterday. I can't imagine. I was really struggling last night. I feel a lot better this morning, got a great night's sleep, but I can't imagine having chemo and then being on here and talking and cheery like you are. So you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry. I was a little bit fatigued at the end of the day yesterday. I'm not going to lie. I did chemo for like 5 hours. Then I drove to my naturopath doctor for hyperthermia. Then I booted home, grabbed my one son from my mom's house after school. Then I booted over to grab my other son. He had a hockey game out of town. I drove him to that. I got home and I was drained from chemo, and but still I had a hard time falling asleep because they do give you some pre-meds before chemo, like a steroid that normally on every Wednesday night, it kind of wires me up. So I'm tired, I'm drained, but it's hard for me to fall asleep. I only woke up once in the middle of the night, which is pretty good. If my buddy Dwight's listening, he's trying to improve my sleep and your sleep, Kerry. Right. So I only woke up once and I knowing it was going to be a rough night, but that's one of my regimens I'm trying to improve is sleep as well. So I'm going to start taking my electrolytes and vitamins later on today to boost me up a little bit. And I think I'm going to be okay for the weekend, Kerry. I'm pretty motivated now because I got my scan coming up next week. So.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going strong. I wish we had more sun in the morning. The whole grounding thing
Yeah.
was more so to get that sun in the light. It's been
Mhm.
cloudy out every
Yes.
day, but so um, Dr. Hampton has some amazing information to share with us. I wanted to share one thing just real quick. Jeff and I put together a cancer action plan. We're trying to get 1 million signatures for cancer options. And one of the biggest things I've learned talking to Jeff and some other folks diagnosed with cancer is oftentimes you're diagnosed and they're like, here's chemo. And then in Jeff's case, he does chemo and they give him cookies, but there's little plan. There's like, what do I do next? Jeff has an amazing plan and regimen. A lot of it he had to come up with from help from his friend Dwight and from watching YouTube channels and doctors like Dr. Hampton and folks online. So we decided to put together this cancer action plan. I just want to share this with you guys quick. Jeff and I did a video together when I was filming with him last week. So I'm going to just share this. It's a real short video, but I think you guys will enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm fighting stage 4 cancer. When doctors told me I was inoperable, incurable, and only had months to live, my world shattered. They pushed conventional treatment as the only path until I found metabolic therapy and created my own regimen. Learning about Professor Seyfried's groundbreaking work changed everything. I learned you have to question everything. Imagine my hopelessness when after chemo, they handed out cookies, knowing full well cancer thrives on sugar. It was as if I was drowning and my trusted rescuers tossed me an anchor. Cancer doesn't have to mean hopelessness. Discovering metabolic therapy as an additional tool in my regimen revealed the power of a natural, proper human diet. It gave me strength. Chemo became more bearable. I've outlived my prognosis. My quality of life has drastically improved, and many others thriving on metabolic therapy also. Our goal is humanity. Our goal is to ensure every cancer patient is presented all the options and all the tools. This declaration is the first step. Too often, only the profitable treatments are offered. My story and the story of many others thriving on metabolic therapy are more than anecdotes. They are proof of what's possible. If you believe in a full spectrum of options for cancer treatment, not just the profitable ones, then stand with me. Sign the declaration, raise your voice, and demand that humanity returns to cancer care. Together, we can bring hope, choice, and life to everyone in this battle. The link to our declaration is below, along with our cancer action plan, including metabolic therapy resources, videos, regimens, and more. If you know anyone touched by cancer, please share this and help us reach 1 million signatures so our voices can be heard.
Thank you for watching that, guys. So the link for that is below. It's healinghumanity.movie/cancer. And like Jeff said, our goal is to gather 1 million signatures from individuals who stand with us in advocating for comprehensive cancer care that includes metabolic therapies and nutrition. And then we have this whole action plan, things that have helped Jeff and others diagnosed with cancer kind of take things into their own hands and create a plan. Then there's a bunch of links to Professor Seyfried's work and some other videos. There's a whole section here. This wonderful documentary recently came out called Cancer Evolution. And there's a lot of folks that are thriving with metabolic therapies and their cancer. And there's videos for all of those. And there's also a link then to sign the declaration, the petition. And it's really cool. I was just looking this morning. We have, let me see here again. 728 signatures. So hopefully by the end of the day today, we can hit 1,000. More important than those signatures, though, wow, some of the comments we're getting, because you can sign it and then you can leave a reason why you signed it. And there's so many comments on there from folks saying, I wish I knew about this 5 years ago. I lost my wife to cancer. I lost my son to cancer. And if this was just an option. So It's if you're interested, please take a look at that link, consider signing it, and consider sharing it if you know anyone touched by cancer. So with all of that said, I think maybe the next thing we can do is take a look at some of the presentation Dr. Hampton has. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it. And I'll make sure to incorporate my colleagues, you guys, into the conversation, so it's not a one-way street. As you look at our handsome faces, our faces of Thanksgiving, and I do want to start by saying that number one, Kerry, you've been a wonderful evangelist. I don't know if you have spiritual backgrounds, but I tell you, this is a blessing to all of us to have you in the carnivore community. You came out of nowhere and you have made such an impact already. Jeff, the fact that you're facing cancer, fighting cancer, and sharing your message of healing will inspire so many people. So for me, my role today, other than, first of all, again, dedicated to my mom, Annie Sharp, and dedicated to my now deceased mother-in-law, Myra Harris. This is what it's all about. And so we're going to honor the people who have left, and we're going to honor the people who are still here, and we're going to honor our babies who we hope never have to face cancer. But really the benefits of carnivore and fasting and supplementation and repurposed medicines is what this is all about. If you're fighting cancer with drugs, chemo, radiation, and surgery, and that's it, you are missing the boat. So, and I really appreciate the live stream you did, Kerry, with Professor Seyfried. Professor Seyfried is a living legend. And if you don't believe that, you'll find out as we talk about this. And again, we're going to have discussion and just start this discussion with these slides. So let's go and get the party started. The first thing I want to do is, I'm a doctor, so I'm always thinking about, what's the objective of today's talk? The objective is to understand how keto and carnivore can help treat and prevent cancer, how fasting can help treat and prevent fasting, and how supplements and repurposed medicines. And although we're wellness folk, we are okay with medicine too. We're okay with medicine. We want to integrate those into our approach. We want to have all hands on deck. So let's start with like keto and carnivore for cancer, just to get a sense of what that looks like. I want to introduce you to a previous guest on my Protecting Your Nest podcast, Martha Tettenborn. She's a nutrition professional and a coach. She's a keto coach, and she wrote this really wonderful book called Hacking Chemo. So part of our conversation, just like the resources that were shared already, part of our conversation is to make sure that you have resources. So the first resource you're going to have is her wonderful book. Now, she's, again, a registered dietitian. She lives in Central Ontario, so she's in Canada. That's a familiar place, right? Shout out to Canada. And she was diagnosed with an ovarian cyst. It was about 16 centimeters, and that's really big. Could you imagine a 16-centimeter cyst? And she wasn't sure if it was just a cyst. But when they took the fluid and they actually took the cyst out, they did find that it was cancer. And unfortunately, when they were trying to do the surgery, it spilled into her abdomen. And so that led to her doing a ton of research. And then she ended up authoring a book called Hacking Chemo. And what I love about her is that in the nutrition profession, we're told to follow the food pyramid and the plate and all of that stuff. But she had the courage to say, I need to find another answer because this doesn't seem to be working. And so she was fearless. She didn't care about the fact that she was a nutrition professional. And after 20 years of following this low-fat methodology, she landed with Mark Sisson's Primal Health Coaching Group, and they taught her about the benefits of reducing carbs. So I want you to meet her because she has this great book. And once she learned and did her research, she learned that this fighting cancer is more than just about surgeries, procedures, radiation, and chemo. It's about nutrition. And she also learned that it's not this genetic connection that we're taught. She learned that the genetic connection was overstated and may not be the key at all. she learned that cancer may be a metabolic disease instead. And she learned that the thing that cancer cells like the most is glucose and sugar. So if we keep eating those types of foods or things that turn into that, we're going to run into a problem. And she also learned that, believe it or not, cancer cells have extra insulin receptors. So imagine having extra receptors on a cell that's cancer. It's going to be starving for glucose. So she learned these principles, and she learned the principle of the Warburg effect. And Dr. Warburg won the Nobel Peace Prize when he shared with the world that cancer cells love sugar. So let's think about why this hadn't been shared widely. This was in the 1920s. So if we knew that the Warburg principle, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment, is the key, what happened? What happened was in the 1950s, we discovered this double helix. And so we now started to connect cancer with our genetics, and thanks to the research of James Watson. And what happens is once they come up with this, what they think is the answer, then they forget about the other stuff they learned. And that's what happened. By the way, the Warburg guy was in Germany, and we know in the 1940s and et cetera, Germany wasn't, looked upon favorably. So they didn't even respect the scientists in Germany at the time. So, but let's look at this guy. Now, this guy if you've been following Kerry, because Dr. Seyfried, I mentioned earlier that he's a living legend. He took the work of Dr. Warburg and kind of took over and put it back in the public sphere. And he also believed that ketogenic diets and carnivore is a ketogenic diet and fasting were the keys to treating cancer because it's a metabolic disease. So here's an example of what happens with a normal source of energy, which is glucose, and it's called glycolysis. So when you're converting glucose to energy, we call it glycolysis. And as you can see from this example, if you don't have oxygen around in a normal cell, it's going to only have a path towards making pyruvate and then lactate, and you only get 2 ATP. So 2 sources of adenosine triphosphate, which is our source of energy. And of course, this is all happening in the place where we make energy, which is our mitochondria. So that's the first thing you need to know. The second thing you need to know is that sometimes you do have oxygen available, and that's called oxidative phosphorylation. And so you take the glucose and you can convert it from pyruvate to, in the mitochondria with the oxygen present, you can get 36 ATP. So this is a more efficient model that we tend to use in our body. So 1 glucose molecule turn into 36. But guess what happens in cancer? Cancer cells do a process called aerobic glycolysis. And you would think that when they take that glucose to pyruvate, they would also, in the presence of oxygen, want to get 36 ATP. But unfortunately, they don't. They, for some reason, just they block that pathway, and then they end up with lactate and only 2 ATP. But it's really important to understand that this is how they live and survive. And because of this mechanism, because of this process, they depend on could you imagine how much energy a cancer cell that's growing fast needs? So it's going to go crazy looking for glucose. So if you have a dietary pattern that's feeding cancer glucose, unlike carnivore, you're going to basically be feeding the cancer. So I wanted to put that in front of you so you'd understand what this Warburg effect is and why it's important to understand it. Now, here's a study published that in the Internal Journal of Cancer, and it said ketone supplementation decreases cell viability and prolongs survival in mice for metastatic cancer. I could list I could have put tons of studies in front of you with dealing with keto and cancer. Again, carnivore is a keto diet as well. I'm just showing you this just to kind of point out that a few things that's important to understand. So they're saying in this study, although ketone bodies are efficient energy substrates for healthy extrahepatic tissue, cancer cells cannot effectively use them for energy. So the message in that first paragraph, that first sentence, is that you cannot use ketones effectively as energy. And there's also this other part of cancer cells. Widespread mitochondrial pathology has been observed in most, if not all, tumors examined. So that leads to a decrease in the mitochondria number, the structure, and other things that happen in the mitochondria. So you have two things here. You have ketones are not a good source of fuel, which means that low carb keto or carnivore diet is probably not good for cancer. And you also have, it's good for cancer treatment, but not good for the cancer cells. And then the mitochondria is dysfunctional in cancer cells. And that's really important to understand. And it says, although mitochondrial dysfunction explains the inability of cancer cells to effectively use ketones for energy, the anti-cancer effects of ketones in a normal glucose environment are not immediately clear. But what we do know is that ketone bodies inhibit glycolysis, thus decreasing the main pathway of energy. So now you know, oh, if I'm in ketosis, I'm going to make it very hard for the cancer cell to get its glucose as its form of energy. So that's really, and what I love about this versus the genetic mindset is that I can do something about this. Instead of saying, oh, woe is me, my family has bad genes, et cetera. So did you want to comment, my friend?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if I'm in a classroom. I feel like I'm in a science classroom, and I'm absolutely loving it, Dr. Hampton. I also have read a lot of studies about ketones and how it's not a efficient energy source for tumors. So I'm thinking to myself right now, like during my fast, I was supplementing with, especially when I get into the fast, I think I'm gonna go home and take it right now, MCT oil, which is supposed to enhance your ketone production, right?
Yeah.
So I think after listening to this, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna make sure the next few days, Kerry, I'm taking my shots of MCT oil while I'm fasting. My naturopath doctor taught me that, and I was even reflecting. I've been monitoring my glucose the last 3 days and my Keto Mojo that Kerry sent me. And I know when I go for chemo, because it's a plant and it's a medicine, I'm going to get a glucose spike.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get a crazy glucose spike last night, during the day yesterday after chemo, but it went down quite a bit. And my GKI, the glucose ketone index, was somewhat decent last night before I went to bed. But I think I want to try to get that even better, enhancing the ketone bodies in my body, right? To help out.
I agree. There are certain types of medical conditions that you want to be in ketosis. You don't necessarily have to be in ketosis to fight diabetes or to deal with your blood pressure. But when you're dealing with epilepsy, you want to be in ketosis. When you're dealing with cancer, you want to be in ketosis. When you're dealing with most of the neurodegenerative diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's or Huntington's, Parkinson's, you want to be in ketosis. So there are certain conditions that would put you in a better place if you're in ketosis. In this case, we do not want to feed our cancer cells. Therefore, if you're in ketosis and getting a little help, MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides are a concentrated form of what, you start with coconut oil and you can turn it into that. And that is a phenomenal way. You can also purchase exogenous ketones supplements that you can get online on Amazon. And again, you create an environment where the cancer cells struggle. So I am a huge fan. Thanks for bringing that up, Jeff, because I think that's an absolute true statement. So let's keep doing it. And then, before I move on, so the big picture, guys, we did part one. Part one is keto, carnivore are effective treatments for cancer because it creates an environment where the cancer cells can't thrive. It's just as simple as that. So we're trying to keep it simple, but that's a huge concept. So if anybody tells you that keto is going to cause cancer, you say, well, that's just not true. That's just not factually true. Anybody can do a Google search and search keto and maybe put breast cancer, and you'll see studies that show that that's effective. And now you understand why. So let's go. So the next topic is, Jeff kind of said he was fasting. I mean, who the heck fasts while they're getting chemo? That sounds crazy. That sounds like you're going to harm yourself. Let's talk about why that's actually a good idea. So we're going to talk about fasting for cancer. So here's another gentleman that we need to know about. So we already met one legend. Here's another, Dr. Walter Longo, who does research on fasting and cancer. And he's learned that if you can impact the fuel source for cancer, then you're going to give yourself a better chance. Well, no better way to impact the fuel source is than just to not eat, right? I mean, you can't get any fuel that way, right? And he was able to show that chemo was made more effective by fasting, which sounds really weird, but we'll explain that in a moment. And people, when they do chemo and fast at the same time, they actually have less side effects, which is why my good friend Jeff is saying, I feel, hey, I can pass the turkey. I'm good. I feel like doing my thing. I don't feel 100%, but I'm feeling much better than the people who sat next to him in chemo. The people who sat next to him who don't know this, they're in the bed right now. They're not doing a live stream and they're not living their best life because they don't know what we're trying to share today. I got to go back to my good friend, Martha, as you know, and she's really somebody I want you to think about again, because she learned that, again, if you remove the fuel source and you use chemo, fasting while you're doing chemo, you may do better. So what she learned is that if I starve the cancer cells, and this book is helpful because it gives her protocol, but you won't have to go to her book. If you go to, I'll share her website in a moment. If you go to her website, you'll also be able to get her protocol. In fact, we may want to pause for a second. Here's her protocol. She fasts for 36 hours before chemo. She has 11 hours of chemo. Then she has 24 hours after chemo where she fasts. So so I used the Tuesday. If she started on Tuesday, she'd have dinner Tuesday night, and then she wouldn't eat again till Friday night. I mean, do you know anybody that has cancer that ever did that? So I want to pause for a minute. And of course, she drinks the teas and the bone broths and things like that, exogenous ketones. I just want to hear from Jeff. Do you have a similar protocol? What does yours look like?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that, Dr. Hampton. And the book too, just before I get into that, like, it's on my Christmas list now. I just wrote it down.
Good.
I'm hoping Santa brings me the book, because he's going to bring me, I think, he's going to bring me the Carnivore Diet, right? And maybe Dr. Anthony Shafee's book as well. So I got a bunch of wish lists here. Anyways, my chemo and fasting regimen was actually first started, encouraged by, of course, my friend Dwight, but also another woman here in Ontario who's actually in my hometown, Brantford. Her name's Ronnie Campbell, and her book is titled Racing for a Miracle. And she had similar to what I had, stage 4 colon cancer. She had a surgery and it spread everywhere. Like, it was on her lungs, liver, momentum, lymph nodes. It was everywhere. And she's now been in remission since she was on chemo from 2018 to 2020, and she's been on remission now since 2020. And she lives in my hometown, so I was able to meet with her quite often for coffees and stuff. And after like my third round of chemo, I started her regimen where I was fasting for 3 days. I was doing, if my chemo was on a Wednesday, I would stop eating Monday night, so I would fast Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3-day fast. And that improved my symptoms with chemo big time. But the more and more I got into learning about the benefits of fasting, especially Walter Longo, I'm really happy you mentioned him, because Siegfried and Walter Longo, they are my cancer gurus. And Kerry helped me hook up with Siegfried, and I'm hoping we go see Siegfried live. I want to chat with him. And to be honest with you, my family's from Italy. My parents were born there. I'm hoping to visit Italy soon, and I would love to hook up with Walter Longo too. So just to learn more about fasting and what I'm doing, and maybe he can give me some tips here and there. But because I studied Walter Longo, and my friend Dwight, he's trying to get me to expand my fasts. And Siegfried talks about the benefits of a 14 to 21 day fast. There's been many people with cancer that have turned their cancer around the other way by doing those fasts. I upped it to 5 days. So I only did the 3 days for a few rounds. And then once I started learning more and more about it and I started feeling really good, I upped it to 5 days. So I'm on 34 rounds of chemo, but I was even fasting during the summer. So Kerry's right. When I've done like 34, 35, 5-day fasts, I really have. and it's pretty much I eat one week and I don't eat the next week. So this past weekend on Sunday night, I stopped eating, and now I'm not going to eat till Friday evening. But this round, I'm going even further because I do have a scan coming up, and I want to try to get inflammation right down, and hopefully starve those cancer cells even more leading up to my scan. So I'm doing an 8-day fast, and I think I can do it. And it's very, I'm getting support from Kerry. I'm also getting support from a lot of my subscribers. I'm super impressed. Like, I don't know, Kerry, if you've been reading the comments, there's a lot of people that are doing the 5-day fast with us. Even someone said they're doing the 8-day fast. And I was like, whoa, I don't know why they're doing it, but God bless them. I think the more support you have, especially when you're fasting, it's very difficult for me when I'm doing my 5-day fast at times. And I try to push myself. Like, I try to cook my sons and my wife dinner while I'm fasting. And then I exit and I go to the other room. So I don't watch the meeting, but I'm getting to the point where, I can grab a good bottle of water, and I sit down with my sons while they're eating, and I'm doing all right. So I hope I answered a little bit of your question there. I went too long. Sorry.
No, that's good. I just want to add one thing too that I learned from Jeff. The interesting thing with Jeff too is when you first started, Jeff, you weren't doing the fasting and you were doing the first couple rounds of chemo. And
Yes.
from what you were saying, you were feeling the effects of chemo. So you've kind of felt it both ways.
Yes, and I did feel it. Like, when people said, "Oh, chemo's going to kick the poop out of you, like it's going to really destroy even your good cells," I was prepared mentally for that. So and actually, my doctors, like my oncologist, my liver and colon specialist, they're saying, go home and rest, take it easy, don't lift things, relax, and that made it worse, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because doing nothing is not good, and that's another benefit is exercise. So I was on the SAD diet or Mediterranean diet for the first 3 rounds. So, I was carb dependent, and I wasn't, I was having those crashes. If I was wearing a glucose monitor for the first 3 rounds, which I wasn't, I'm pretty sure I would have saw my glucose going like this all day long. Right. So yeah, you're right, Kerry. It definitely, I've seen both sides of it. So I can talk about both sides of it when I'm fasting, when I'm not fasting. And believe me, I don't want to be not fasting. Like, I don't, like, I was thinking, I'm going into an 8-day fast. Maybe I should just keep it at a 5-day fast, but not fast Monday, Tuesday, like go into chemo with Tuesday eating dinner. I said, no way. Because I know I need to get my body in the state of ketosis, in a deep state, like a therapeutic state of ketosis, going into chemo, because that's going to help me a lot. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we'll share in a moment why this makes sense. It's your brain. It's like our brains are like, bam, popping, because it doesn't make sense to fast just based on our conventional thinking. So, and that's why people who heal are willing to challenge conventional thinking. So if we challenge it and say, man, this sounds like it makes sense, and you'll understand why in a moment, then we need to offer that to the world. Now, let's be clear. If we're still using chemo, so they're still gonna make profit on that, right? But you may need less chemo, and you certainly won't need all of those medications that you typically take when you do chemo, because you may not be nauseated, you may not feel bad, so you save money there. So, but the more important fact is that it's gonna help you fight your cancer. So let's kind of move along and think about. Now, this is when I said earlier, there are resources. So you just heard Jeff give you a sense of his protocol. Well, Martha has a website, and she has her protocol. And by the way, I did do a podcast with her. So if you want to hear her chat with me about her journey, just type, her name, my name on YouTube, you'll see it. But if you look at what she shared on that episode, she said, target cells that metabolize rapidly. That's the cancer cells. And also, we now know why we lose hair, because it doesn't seem like our hair is growing rapidly, but it is. Our bone marrow, clearly where everything starts, our cells start, that's growing fast. And then our digestive system, giving us all those GI. So cancer treatment generally targets those types of cells. That's the chemo, etc. Now, what fasting does, which is really cool, is it puts the healthy cells into a quieter state, because when you're fasting, your cells are saying, I don't know when the energy's coming in, so I'm going to go and take a nap. I'm going to go chill out. But that's a good thing, because the chemo doesn't really want to bother the ones that's taking a nap. The chemo is focused on the fast-growing cells. So when you are using fasting as a treatment modality, you're actually helping your body to target the fast-growing cells, because the healthy cells are just sleeping. So it really, so now you can understand why the nausea is reduced, because my GI cells are sleeping, they're chilling. My vomiting, my muscle aches, my neuropathy. So many people who deal with cancer don't have to just deal with neuropathy right away, but they have to deal with it later. And anybody that's had that nerve pain is horrible. And then one thing that she did mention, because of how your hair grows, she still lost her hair because the hair grows in such a way that the lasting effects of chemo still bothered her hair. But she also noticed that when she checked her labs, a lot of those, a lot of people get, neutropenic, their white cells go down and all of that kind of stuff. It's not as dramatically impacting you, because again, you're putting some of those healthy cells to sleep. And again, even the fast growing cells are not growing as fast as the cancer cells. But just as importantly, as I mentioned, all that medicine and treatment that you normally have to get after chemo, she found that when she was getting chemo, she didn't, at some point, she didn't even need the medicine, because she felt so good doing her fasting protocol. So does all that resonate with you, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just started thinking about this last night, actually, Kerry, in your little podcast there. The Australian fellow, I think his name was David, right? He spoke about the steroid that I take actually feeds the cancer.
It does.
And yeah, so I'm thinking, why the heck have I been taking this whole time, 34 rounds, the steroid and the nausea pill? I'm questioning, like, the next time I go in for chemo, I don't know. I don't think the problem is, I don't think they're going to agree with me not taking it. So I hope they're not watching this. I might pretend to take it and just see how I feel.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Martha's protocol or any of the information she shares speaks to that, but what I do recall from our podcast is that that was one of the things she stopped.
Yeah. I think I need to stop it. I think I will ask for permission to stop it.
Yeah.
And see what they say. They do give me another thing right before so I take a steroid pill and then I take a nausea pill. Just like you said, I take 2 steroids and 1 nausea pill, and I'm supposed to take the nausea pill later that evening, but I haven't been doing it because they say to take it with food later. I don't even do it, so I don't need it. But they do another one, atropine, they give me for nausea too, right before they administer the chemo, and then in the middle of it, I take it too, because I do notice in the middle of my chemo, I do get a bit of cramping, a little bit of nausea. So that atropine, I think I'm going to stick with for now. But if I can get rid of the steroid and that other nausea pill, giddy up, because it's actually, to be honest with you, it's a pain in my butt. Every Tuesday night before Wednesday, I have to go pick up the pills at my pharmacy. Like, they don't even give it to me at the hospital. It's up to me, and I forget sometimes, and then I'm like in a panic. But on a like a lifestyle stress thing, if I can get rid of those 2 pills, I would love to. So I'm gonna try and push that.
It's the question you'll ask is, well, why am I taking the steroid, right? So and it's very likely that it has a lot to do with how the chemo affects your body. It's probably not as therapeutic as it is to make you tolerate it. So if it's all about tolerance, well, I'm gonna probably tolerate it more than the person sitting next to me. So can we at least do a trial? So when I'm dealing with my doctors or my health system, we always have to do a trial, right? So can I do a trial? Let's see what happens if I skip it 1 session. If things go well, can we do that trial again? Yes. And so that's what I would take, that type of approach, because they'll probably hear you. And if there's some information that Martha has, and what would be helpful, you and Martha need to probably connect. So let's connect to Martha and the fellow Canadian, right? So we can see if we can work it out. That's right. Yeah, by the way, I talked to another fellow Canadian, the ketogenic woman, who has, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she has a YouTube channel. So shout out to the ketogenic woman. She's about 65. And she's going to be on the podcast, but she's the one you go to online to get the recipes. And she's kind of gone from low carb keto. Now she's carnivore, but she has a ton of keto and carnivore. So you may want to be aware of her as well, as we're trying to, we don't want to, some people need variety, give me a steak, I'm happy, but some of us need variety. And she'll help you with that. So
no, you're absolutely right. And just to add to that, Kerry, yesterday I was watching those videos you'd made 6 months ago on Carnivore, where you'd made 24 eggs in a frying pan and bacon and beef and butter. And I showed that to my sons, and they're like, "Giddy up, Dad! Let's do this. Let's do this next week. Let's." And I said, "Absolutely. When I'm eating, we're gonna try this. 24 eggs in that pan, that metal pan, the power bowl. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yesterday, the girls and I cooked up a different variation of the power bowl: beef, butter, bacon, eggs, all in one. We did a big meatball like your brother-in-law made us when we were out there, wrapped with bacon. I cooked this up yesterday for the girls that are doing carnivore, and of course I'm fasting, so I had some of the struggles you did, Jeff. I'm like, I cook it, and then I just got to go out of the room and drink some water. But yeah, ketogenic woman Anita, I had her on the channel earlier. Dr. Hampton, she's amazing.
Yeah,
she's so good, and just to get some different variety, different ideas, and she's just got such a great demeanor. I told her she's kind of like Mr. Rogers or something. You listen to her talk, and you're like, oh, this is just great. I love watching her videos. The girls, like Emma, my daughter Emma, who's carnivore, enjoys watching her stuff too as well. She's got a great channel.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because and I see that choosing to live comment, Anita is a sweetheart. She just feels warm and fuzzy. She just feels like she cares, and she feels like she's not doing this for anything other than to help people. She's that sister, that aunt, and for some, the grandma that is just blessing us. So that's why we love this community, guys, because we're learning from me. I've only been a carnivore for a year, so I'm learning from you guys. I mean, I'm still trying to figure this out myself. I want variety in my diet, so I want somebody to kind of show me the way so that we can get this done. So let's now. But before I go to the next slide, again, here's her website. You just click. You have to put your email, join the mailing list, and then you'll get her protocol. And I would share that with anybody that's going through cancer, because they need to at least be aware. And then I'll give you more resources later that you can share with your clinician. And so here's my good friend, Dr. Walter Longo. And if you can, Kerry, if you could grab that link and share. I want to share a video. We just shared Jeff's video, but I think sometimes if we have in front of us the person who we honor and respect, who's teaching us, sometimes if we can hear their voice, and then you guys can check this guy out later, maybe go to YouTube, hear him talk. But we want the people who are sharing this message to be in front of us, because again, today is about being thankful and grateful. And I'm just grateful for the resources, so that if I'm hopeless, I have a way to not be hopeless anymore. So that's what this is all about. So see what you can do, Kerry. Is it?
Yeah, I think I have it right here. I can share this video right now. Let's see here. Here we go.
Yeah, that's it.
So in this study, we did animal experiments and basically tested a wide variety of cancers, some of them human cancers, and some of them mouse cancers. And these range from breast cancer to ovarian cancer to melanoma, glioma, and other types of cancers. And what we found was, we had previously found that fasting and fasting cycles could protect the mice from chemotherapy side effects, but it was not clear whether this effect also applied to cancer cells. So if we protected the host by also protecting the cancer cells, the study would be worthless. So we spent basically 5 years actually, working on the cancer. What happens to the cancer cells? And we showed that the fasting cycles make it a lot worse for the cancer cells when chemotherapy is provided. And even more surprisingly, without chemotherapy, in a number of different cancers, we saw that the fasting cycles were as effective, or almost as effective as chemotherapy. This did not happen all the time, but it happened in multiple types of cancers. And so those are, of course, very exciting results for us. Yeah, so the focus, it's been on the magic bullet. How do you kill a cancer cell, primarily? And so what these papers showed, that in addition to going after the cancer by just protecting the normal cells, here we are also showing that maybe one way to go after the cancer cells specifically is not by figuring out or finding a magic bullet, but by creating extreme environments that a normal cell can respond to and a cancer cell is unable to respond to. And so as with each mutation, with each oncogenic mutation or tumor suppressor mutations that a tumor acquires, the tumor has to give up something. And we think that something is the ability to deal with extreme environments. Fasting is probably the most extreme, or certainly one of the most extreme environments that you can encounter. And that's why we think the cancer cells have such a difficult time dealing with it, because there are major reduction in glucose, major reduction in growth factors. And so many things outside of the cell change that the cancer cell is no longer able to deal with it.
To understand the mechanism.
And it's amazing when you understand these simple principles. And again, we wanted today's live stream to be simple, right? And I just want to emphasize, guys, that there's so much that we're learning that's novel, and we use that term when we think about what that's new, right? So, but we can't wait for the mainstream to catch up with the science. Now, again, the science from the studies from Warburg was done in the 1920s. So if you're going to wait for conventional medicine to catch up, you may be waiting another 100 years. Now, I think that's changing, but I just want to be clear. Your courage to do low-carb, keto, or carnivore is what's necessary to convince the mainstream that that's what we need to do. So I just want to put that in front of you, because we can't wait. 1920s is when this information was discovered. It's mind-blowing. So let's go and comment on our next. Before I move along, anything you want to throw out there, Jeff?
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for showing that Walter Longo video, because you're right. I'm hopeless at times, right? And I do need those people, Walter Longo, Seafrid, even yourself, Dr. Hampton, in my life, right? To reinforce what I'm doing, right? And it's good for my mind.
Yeah.
And, you know, I go in, yesterday I'm at the chemo hospital, and every other week I am. And yesterday, again, I'm sitting there, I'm just quiet at the beginning, because I look around me and all these people have these like coolers and like lunch bags, and they're pulling out, like, we have this thing called Tim Hortons here in Canada, like Tim Hortons, like donuts and wraps, and they're eating, like, I'm looking around and everybody's doing this except me. Like, I just, and I don't want to say anything, but I feel for their hopelessness, right? I feel for them. And you know, I hope that they ponder upon, I wish that they ponder upon all the great doctors that are on YouTube and these little podcasts that we're doing, because that's my biggest hope, is for these people. And, you know, the odd time I get in a conversation with them, and I met a new young fellow yesterday beside me, and I'm normally the youngest guy in there at the age of 44, but I met a 35-year-old beside me, and he seems like he's got a lot of passion and fire, and he's ready to fight it. But he just seems to be misguided. He tried carnivore, he told me, for 30 days. He has esophagus cancer, and it's spread everywhere. Actually, it's like 5-6 different locations. But then he's telling me all this while he's eating a muffin. Right? Like a flour-based, sugar-based muffin. Right? So I'm thinking, you know, and he took my number down. He really wants to connect with me, because then when he started talking to me, I just want to, you know, that's what I'll do. If people start talking to me, I'll start talking to them what I'm doing. I don't want to push anything on anybody. I'm in a situation where I'm I'm situated in that mainstream conventional treatment world, right? But I'm doing all this other stuff. And I think that's where I'm having the most success. Like you said, Dr. Hampton, we have to integrate chemo and radiation and whatever we're doing, integrate it. But because especially for me, like I'm too far along. Like if I just had one tumor, it's a different story. Maybe they remove it. But I'm too far along. And Dwight always says that, you know, the indigenous people, they use medicine when they needed to. They use plants when they needed to, but not when they're metabolically healthy. Which, you know, we want to try to avoid plants as much as possible, because they are trying to kill us.
Oh, Dr. Hampton, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Anthony Chafee for reminding us. And that's and I'm glad you said that. It's so funny you kind of teed me up a little bit about this idea of plants are trying to kill you. And before I even comment on the next slide, we've kind of touched on keto carnivore, and we know why that's helpful. We talked about fasting. We know why that is helpful. And by the way, those two things are not part of conventional medicine. You shouldn't have to go to YouTube or a podcast to learn this stuff. It's embarrassing that our health system is not teaching people. Can you just teach them to eat real food? Can we start there? Can we can we teach them that and say, stop giving me this processed garbage called Ensure? That's not food. Yeah. The muffins that you give me after I've had chemo, that's flour and sugar. That's not food. Give me something that's going to nourish my body. I'm blessed to be in the health system. Shout out to Advocate Health. And for those who are not aware, it's Illinois, it's Illinois, Wisconsin, North, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, for allowing me to at least encourage them to do this type of stuff. So we started a food pharmacy. We celebrated just about, even the carnivore doctor is okay with growing vegetables. How ironic is that, right? But and the reason why that's true is because there's levels to this. And the first level is, can we eat real food? And if we eat real food, we're going to do much better. And so we started a food pharmacy. We have it in about 6 hospitals, and we're going to grow that. But we need to be able to learn this information outside of the setting of a YouTube video. And that's all. And so hopefully we can get health systems to grow. That's why I'm still in the health system. I hope to stay in the health system because I want to make an impact on a health system, which would then impact the other health systems, which will then impact the country. And it'll force all of us to receive the kind of care that we are learning from this session. So let's talk briefly about supplements for cancer. And it is true. Dr. Anthony Chafee was not wrong when he said plants are trying to kill you, right? But there's a big but. But it also may be true that some plants have the potential to heal you, right? And so what I want you to do from this day forward, particularly my carnivore brothers and sisters, think about plants like you think about medicine, right? We know that if you take too much medicine, it can be toxic and can harm you, right? But we sometimes, when I have a infection, I'm so thankful that somebody invented penicillin, right? So there are, but if I overdo penicillin, it's going to be toxic. So Dr. Anthony Chafee is right, but it's also true that in the right dose at the right time, plants can actually help you heal. And I had to tee that up. And I thank you, Jeff. You're like the perfect, partner in this discussion because you teed it up without me even preparing you because you never saw these slides before, right? So I appreciate that. So let's go to the next slide. And I want to celebrate another person who I love, a previous guest on my podcast, Dr. Paul Merrick, because he and his team took the time to do the work that you don't have the time to do. They looked at all the supplements and all the meds that have been clinically proven in research trials, high quality trials, to benefit people for cancer treatment. So what we're going to do right now is walk through some of that information. But before we get to the actual supplements and the repurposed medicines, we want to take a moment to understand why. So here's the episode I did with him. And what I did is I cheated a little bit. I stole some of the slides from the episode. That podcast is 58 minutes. We don't have 58 minutes. It's Thanksgiving, right? But I just want to give you some of the things you need to know. So check that episode out if you have a person who has cancer or anything like that. So let's go to the first obvious thing. The first obvious thing that cancer treatment is great, but it misses the boat a little bit because it's really good when you have a localized like cancer that you can kind of go and get. But if it's like all over the place, it's not as good. So hormone therapy, surgery, even bone marrow transplant, all that stuff is good, but it doesn't quite get to every aspect of the cancer that you need to be worried about. So that's number one. Now I want to talk about this idea of radiotherapy, right? Now, this is you can't forget this when I say it, guys. It's not on the slide, but you won't believe this. You ready? Only 10% of cancer cells are actively dividing. I want you to think about that for a second. But you got to understand, cancer treatment is designed to deal with the fast-growing cells. So if only 10% are actively dividing, Houston, we have a problem. And just as importantly, the stem cells are the cells that actually give rise to cancer. Those are the cells in the bone marrow. So guess what? Chemo doesn't really target the stem cells because the stem cells are kind of quiet. So we have cells that are just chilling in the body that are not being targeted by chemo, and we're not really treating it. So, but we already know that if we, target the rapidly growing cells, which is okay, that's at 10%. We know that that also is toxic to our body because it affects our gut. We talked about that, our bone marrow. So there's a little toxicity element too. So, and this TME, you're like, well, what's that, doc? That's there's increased inflammation in the tumor microenvironment with this type of treatment. So there's increase, and we already know inflammation causes a lot of problems. And because radiotherapy, targets those fast-growing cells, they're toxic. And of course, we're not going to talk about the costs of all of this stuff. So I just want to start off with some of the reasons why this approach is not really taking care of all of the needs when you're trying to be treated for cancer. Now, the next slide is important to understand because most cancer cells, or let me say it differently, most cancer docs are not trained to think about cancer as a metabolic disease. They think about cancer as a genetic disease. But cancer cells have so many properties, some of which are not even listed on this slide. But as you can see, if you have this approach where you're saying it's a genetic disease, we still have an issue because this ideal of sustaining proliferative signaling and evading growth suppressors, all of this is an approach that's a genetic approach. And so all of our targeting of that fast growing cells is more of a genetic mindset. And what I'm trying to convey today is that if our theory about cancer is wrong, it's not a genetic disease, it's a metabolic disease, then our treatment must be wrong, right? So that's really important to let that digest. And let's go a little further as we go to the reminder about, I just like people to know who we're talking about. So we mentioned the Warburg effect previously. I just want you to see that guy and know who he is. And what he said to us and taught us is that he said that I think, and my research shows that cancer is a metabolic disease, right? And this was, again, in 1924, and he received a Nobel Peace Prize for this. And what he found that I mentioned earlier is that all cancer cells have an abnormality and that they have a defective mitochondria. I think Dr. Jason Fong talks about this in his Cancer Code book, which is another book. We should have a slide sharing that.
He's
And
from Canada. He's from Canada too. Jason
Oh,
Flood.
don't. You're doing too much Canada. It's too much Canada. I can't. It's overload.
No, I want to connect. I want to connect with him too, for sure. I'm
That's
going to get
right.
his book
That's
as well.
right. I forgot he was from Canada. So there's something going on in Canada. So
Yeah, that's good.
So, and actually one of my other YouTubers I like, Violet of the Road to Health YouTube channel. She's also in Canada. There's a lot of great work being done up there. So the cancer cells can't use oxygen effectively because they got this defective mitochondria. And they go this anaerobic glycolysis. Again, glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose, and they can actually survive without oxygen, which is kind of scary. Cancer cells are so resilient, they can survive without oxygen. And although it would be more effective for them to be able to use oxygen, that's how it is. Now, and what Dr. Warburg found out, it's just a reminder, guys, it's so important, is tumor cells thrive on glucose only. They only thrive on glucose. So if you want to starve your cancer cell of energy, you have to starve it of glucose, which is why carnivore is the perfect diet and keto is the perfect diet to do that. So I just want to really put that in front of you. And let's go to the next slide and see what that's going to reveal. So the origins of cancer. And again, I wanted to put him in front of you, Dr. Seyfried, again, because we got living legends. I can't believe you had him on the podcast, man. That's just, he's a living legend, man. So the work that Dr. Warburg did, as a reminder, has been extended by Professor Seyfried. In other words, it's almost like Dr. Eric Westman, who extended the work that was being done by the Atkins gentleman before he passed. He was going to do research with him. He passed from a fall, and Dr. Eric Westman took that mantle. So we need people to take the mantle and then continue the work. Now, he wrote this book called Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. He makes the case that cancer is a metabolic disease. And I want to say this out loud. I wonder if the incidence, I think you guys talked about this Kerry, you're a superstar. What the heck are you doing a live stream last night and this morning? But last night when I listened to some of it, one of the things that was mentioned is that the incidence of cancer is increasing, right? So I want you guys to pause and think about that. If the incidence of cancer is increasing, do you think our genetics are changing much? Do you really think that's happening? No. But what we do know is that the incidence of poor metabolic health has increased substantially. In fact, when Tufts University put out their position statement on it recently, they said only 7% of the United States is metabolically healthy. That's and a lot of that is our babies as well. So we already know that the correlation, and we know correlation don't equal causation, right? But we see there seems to be a correlation between poor metabolic health and cancer. So what's cool, again, to remind you guys, what's cool about focusing on metabolic health is that it restores hope, because I can't change my mama, I can't change my daddy or my grandparents, but I can change how I eat. I can change if I'm going to fast. I can change if I'm going to exercise. I can change if I'm in a healthy relationship, and all the things I talk about in my podcast. We can change those things. And that's what's so exciting about this. So I really wanted to share that. So now let's look at this slide real quick. And this is just supporting evidence to suggest what we're saying is true. And I want to read this real quick. It says, and this is from a book called Tripping Over the Truth by Travis Christopherson. And it says, no researcher can point to any single mutation or a combination of mutations and say with confidence that it is alone the cause of cancer, nor can researchers point to a series of cellular systems rendered dysfunctional by mutations and make the same claims with confidence. So because I'm like a fifth grader, I need to clarify what he just said. All he's saying is there are some cancers in which there are no mutations, while other cancers have multiple mutations, but there are no characteristic mutations that define all cancers, right? So with that type of thinking, it tells you that if we just focus on mutations, we're gonna lose the war against cancer. It's what's consistent, and what we know for sure is that there is an issue with the mitochondria, right? So, in the mitochondria being dysfunctional is the problem. Having metabolic dysfunction is the problem. So let's look at the second statement. This is the man who helped discover the DNA himself. Literally, James Watson and his partner are the father of genetics. Why would the father of genetics say that cancer was anything other than a genetic disease, right? Well, what he said was we may have to turn our main research focus away from decoding the genetic instructions behind cancer and toward understanding the metabolism within cancer cells. So the man who actually invented the DNA understanding is saying that's not the answer. That's a profound. When I saw that, and led by the discussion I had with Dr. Paul Merrick, I was like, well, if he's saying it, we got to at least listen to the man who invented it. Now, everybody knows that I call my podcast Protecting Your Nest, right? And there's a nest in that tree somewhere. You just can't see it. Use your imagination. But that podcast is all about the root cause of why we get sick, right? So when you look at this slide, I want you to notice that the cancer stem cells at the bottom, those are the ones that give rise to the leaves and the branches of the tree. So, right? So just imagine what we're doing with the current way of treating cancer is that we are cutting the leaves, we're pruning the tree, and we're not addressing the roots. That's what we're doing. Now, if you know nature, if you kill all those weeds and you don't get to the roots, what's going to happen the next season? They're coming right back, right? So our goal today is to help you understand we have to have treatment that addresses the roots. And guess what? The treatment that we get from chemo and radiation does not do that, as I've shared earlier. So that's why that image is there. And by the way, my Protecting Your Nest podcast concept is about getting to the root cause of why we get sick. And thank you, Choosing to Live One, for your comment. So let's go to the next slide as well. So this is something that I really want to put in front of you. This is a reminder that cancer is not a hopeless disease. We can do something about it. And here are some of the things we can do. And let's walk through this. In fact, let's frame it. This is my little commercial. Let's frame it through the Protecting Your Nest, right? So we think about it. What's the N in the nest for, right? It's nutrition. Well, how are you going to deal with insulin resistance? Do you think metformin is the best way to deal with insulin resistance, or your diet? I think your diet and intermittent fasting is how we deal with insulin resistance. So that's number one. The E in the nest talks about exercise. So we want to make sure we're moving our body. And as you can see, get enough exercises on this list, because these are the things we do to prevent cancer. Oh, by the way, the S is for sleep. So now we're getting more sleep. Oh, by the way, the S is also for stress reduction. So I didn't know that Dr. Paul Merrick was a Protecting Your Nest fan, but apparently he is. So, and then as we go down to the rope that climb up the nest, we talk about being in healthy relationships. That's not listed, but what's listed is avoiding organisms and pollutants that can harm us. Well, do you think smoking's a pollutant or a toxin? Do you think alcohol, particularly in excess, is a pollutant? Do you think processed food is a pollutant? All of these things are pollutants that can harm you. And so this list of things that we can do, they're free. Nobody's going to make any money, but it's going to help us to prevent almost 80% of all the cancers that exist. So now this is where the rubber meets the road. Some of you watching here today are here because you are worried that you're going to get cancer because other people in your family have gotten cancer. Some of you are here because you're treating cancer. And so this first slide is about prevention. This is what Dr. Paul Merrick's team found when they did their research, that this is the protocol for cancer prevention. And as you can see, the first thing, most of us have learned from the pandemic. Did you know that like 98% of the people who died of COVID were vitamin D deficient? What does that tell you? That 98%. So something as simple as supplementing with vitamin D is the key. Of course, this slide will give you the dosages. The only caveat I'll add is I always tell patients when they do vitamin D, do vitamin K2 with it, because the K2 is like the usher at the church for my religious folk. They usher you to the seat, right? Well, the K2 takes the extra calcium vitamin D helps you to absorb, and it carries that K2 calcium away from your joints, leading to arthritis, and away from your arteries, building up plaque. So and it ushers it into your bone. So when you do vitamin D3, do a K2 with it. I tend to take omega-3. I was actually taking omega-3 anyway because I'm a steak guy. Don't get enough omega-3, I think, in my diet. So I do omega-3, and it gives you recommendations. Now, here's where me and Dr. Anthony Chafee are, having a little fight. This is where I'm saying plants can heal you at the appropriate time for the appropriate reason. So if you are a carnivore and you love our carnivore community and you tolerate this green tea, then you may want to consider that if you have a family history of cancer. And of course, we think about melatonin for sleep, but it's also good for other things. Like it's good for reflux. It tightens the lower esophageal sphincter. In this case, it's good for cancer. Now, none of us are in love with medicine, but if you're at a really high risk for cancer in your family, you may want to talk to your doctor about metformin. Metformin is being repurposed for longevity and obviously for cancer and other things. So I just want to put that in front of you so you guys will understand this. So it's really exciting to know that high-risk people can now have something actionable they can do to reduce their risk for getting cancer. And I just wanted to put that in front. So that's a very important slide that you guys need to see. And I'll give you access to how you can get that in front of you in a monograph. Now, here's the next very important slide. And this slide is the one that deals with metabolic interventions you can do for people who already have cancer. And when I recorded this episode with Dr. Merrick, the last two things on the list were not there. And I know we can talk about statins all day, but that's not the point of this conversation. So if you start at the top, right? Why is that diet the number one thing on the list? Because you already know, we just talked about it. We're going to starve the cancer with a keto or carnivore dietary pattern. So that's the first thing. If you take away one thing from this discussion today, somebody needs to be on a keto or carnivore diet, because that'll make a huge difference. And then we have exercise, stress reduction, and sleep. We got our vitamin D again. Again, these are people with cancer, melatonin again, and the green tea. And then we have that repurposed metformin. So the things in the first part are more prevention as well. Then you get to curcumin. And by the way, both metformin and mebendazole have something in common. They both inhibit gluconeogenesis. And for those who don't know that term, that just means when your liver makes glucose on your behalf when you're sleeping at night. Well, you don't want to make too much glucose. We already told you that feeds cancer. So metformin and mebendazole are very good for that. Mebendazole is an interesting drug. I love that that's on the list because it's also an anti-parasitic. I think cancer is a parasite too. So we have an anti-parasitic drug being repurposed for the ideal of depriving your cell of glucose, the cancer cell of glucose, because it inhibits gluconeogenesis. It also inhibits something called glutamine, and it also inhibits cell division and promotes cell death. But go ahead, Jeff.
Is this mebendazole similar to what is it, Kerry? Fenbendazole?
Yeah.
Fenbendazole?
Yeah.
So say it again.
Yeah.
Fenbendazole, I think it was.
Yeah. Is it similar? Like
yeah.
It's a dog dewormer type parasite.
It is. Fenbendazole. I don't have pets, man, but that's an anti-parasitic as well, and it treats like hookworms and whipworms and all of that kind of stuff. It treats the worm, so the mechanism is basically similar. And that's what I love about when I was in medical school. If I see the same thing at the end of a word, I knew that was in the same category. All the
oses are bad for you, right? All the alls, like cortisol, stuff like that, right? That's right. I look at the ending of the words too. But this mebendazole that you speak of here I can get this. I can get this as a human.
That one is for humans, and
Okay.
it would require a prescription. It would require
Okay.
some explanation. So at the end, when I share how to get the monograph for this, you may want to put that in front of you. You have a good team. You got a holistic doctor, and and
Yeah.
let me say this first. If you're struggling and your conventional doctor is not getting answers, please get you a functional medicine doctor or a integrative doctor. It's not that they're smarter. They just see the world through a different lens, and you need to have a different perspective so that you can learn this information we're sharing today.
Oh,
Some of the stuff
absolutely.
we're sharing today, they get that. And the conventional doctors, you think they learn anything about nutrition? I had 2 weeks in medical school, and I had to get a master's in nutrition. And then even when I got my master's in nutrition, I had to question some of the stuff they were saying. You have to always have a question attitude. Yeah.
I have a nephew right now. He did 4 years of bioscience health degree, and now that was his undergrad, and he just started this year eye doctor optometry school. He just started this year here in Ontario, University of Waterloo. And I asked my nephew, I go, you're entering the optometry world. In those next 4 years, of you becoming a doctor, how many nutrition courses do you think you're going to be getting? And he said to me, he calls me Zizi. That's uncle in Italian. He goes, Zizi, I don't think, to be honest with you, I think I might get one nutrition course in the 4 years as an eye doctor, right? And that's, and I'm pretty sure that's similar, like you, Dr. Hampton, as a medical doctor. All the, like, how many courses are these guys getting, right? And
not enough.
No, not enough. And you're right. My naturopath doctor, and I'm sure he's going to be listening to this podcast because he's really into this right now. His name's Dr. Reed, and he's got no problem me shouting out his name here in Ontario. But I'm gonna be asking him about metformin and that mebendazole for sure, because you're absolutely right. If it can inhibit, especially that gluconeogenesis, where it's converting some of the protein into glucose, I want to try to inhibit that as much as possible.
That's right.
And that's why I'm keeping my fat content up. And I'm just looking at your list here. Like if we did a whole video of my supplements with Kerry just last week, and I didn't talk about my dosage because you know what? I think everyone's got to approach it their own way, right? And you say right there on your previous slide, everybody needs to be taking 5,000 international units. That's correct, per day. Like I think the Canadian government, American government says 1,000 international units. Really low. But here it is, and I've been taking, under my friend Dwight's suggestion, I've been taking 20,000 to 50,000 every single day. Wow. And people, when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, whoa, Jeff, you got to be careful. You're going to cause toxicity in your body with vitamin." And it's not even. There's other doctors, and I love how you're talking about this Dr. Merrick, and because he's a specialist, right? There's another doctor that I follow, Dr. Peter Osborne, and Dr. Peter Osborne is another one. When it comes down to supplements and vitamins, he explains it to a T. Like he explains how, a fair-skinned person can go out in the sun for 30 minutes, and we're actually getting like our body's transforming the UV into vitamin D3, and we're getting like 30,000 international units in 30 minutes. So I don't understand this fear. We have this fear around this vitamin D toxicity, which is limiting people, and it's limiting the conventional doctors to saying, "Hey, we need to be doing this. We need to be taking these supplements."
Yeah, we do. And I again, what I also learned in my functional medicine training is that the standards that we have for conventional it's not at a level it needs to be. So totally agree with that. And I am so thankful that we have this list, the omega-3, the berberine, again, inhibiting gluconeogenesis as well. Berberine is good for a lot of things, and here he suggests we alternate those. We have a lot of concerns about statins in the world. I get that, and again, this is not one of those lists that you have to do everything on the list, right? So if you, like, for example, I take this, supplements that are on that prevention list, right? Well, I don't do metformin. So I think you have to decide where you land with this, and I think that'll be good. Disulfiram is not something most people know about, but I remember in my training, I haven't prescribed it much, but it is used to help overcome drinking problems because it makes you not feel so great if you're drinking. So that's one of the uses for it. So if you're taking that, you're gonna have to blame it on alcohol, like Jamie Foxx said. It's gonna make you sick. So I would not do alcohol and disulfiram together, but just be mindful. Those things in red are things that you're gonna have to share with your clinician. So we're kind of wrapping up the slides. I think this is kind of the take-home message is that it's okay to use repurposed drugs to help you fight cancer. If you do chemo surgery alone, that's not going to be enough. If you do the first 3 bullet points and you don't deal with stress and sleep, you're still going to have a problem, because if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to make glucose and it's going to then give you trouble. So we got to deal with all of that. And then when it says metabolic treatment, that's when you think about fasting. That's when you think about the diet. That's when you think about the supplements. And I think if we manage things this way, this is how cancer treatment should be. And we can add behavioral health, we can add palliative care, goals of care. All of that should be a soup of things that you do. You have to attack it with all hands on deck. And then here's the resource I wanted to wrap up with. This is the resource that you can go to get the monograph. What is a monograph? I think it's 70 plus pages of evidence, because when you talk to your clinician, they don't want to hear nothing about a podcast or a YouTube channel, right?
No.
Yeah, they don't want to hear nothing about that. So you need to put some science in front of them. And when you go to that flcc.net, you'll have some science. And then if you want to go to the website and get the slides to the presentation that are longer than what we just shared, you can go to that flcc.net/cancer-care. And that'll get you that monograph and the slides. And of course, the episode I did with Professor Merrick will get you, get the information in front of you. So I just felt like I was so impressed with you, Jeff, being on other podcasts, sharing your story. I checked out a couple of those out. And then I was also noticing, because Kerry was meeting with you, that he's focused on cancer. And I just felt like, let's try to do something to kind of put everything in one place. And I'm a visual learner, so having some slides in front of me, for me, was a way for me to review it myself and also share it. So that's why I felt it was helpful. That's why I reached out to Kerry and said, let's do this. Let's celebrate this beautiful day that we're so thankful for, by starting it with some information that could change some lives. And I'll do this for free for the rest of my life, because this is what we're here. We're born to do certain things. And for me, is to teach the value of metabolic health. And I think I hit the right focus, because I think it's going to impact 70-80% of the things that can harm us. So really, I just want to, shout out to you guys. Thank you for the opportunity, and we can just chat from here.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you so much for putting this together, Dr. Hampton. This is the Healing Humanity Cancer Action Plan we have with links. This is definitely going on there, along with the videos you did with Martha and Paul Merrick. This is incredible. So this is just what I was looking for, because Professor Seyfried is amazing, but sometimes when I'm listening to him, it's hard to digest all of this, and you put it together in such a way that it's so easy to understand. We're getting comment after comment saying the same thing. Thank you for sharing this information, because it's so easy to understand. I see Jeff down there taking notes and screenshots and stuff too. So
Kerry, you're absolutely right. This needs to go on the Healing Humanity website, this PowerPoint. Dr. Hampton, thank you. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I'm a visual learner as well, kinesthetic learner as well. I needed this today, and I've been doing great podcasts hooked up from Mr. Kerry Mann here. Like, Dr. Baker was amazing. Seyfried was amazing. He's super smart, but he didn't have a PowerPoint for me. And also, Anthony Shafee the other night was amazing, and Anthony Shafee even stayed on afterwards with us for 20 minutes, and we learned a lot from him there, Kerry. And I, from the bottom of my heart, Dr. Hampton, like, you're a very brave medical doctor, and I'm very proud of you, because a lot of these doctors are leaving the conventional world, but you're staying in there. You're staying in there, and your food pharmacy, I wrote that down. Like, I'm super impressed with that. I want to learn more about that, and I'm blown away by what you're doing, and I just want to say, keep it up. Like it's phenomenal. We need more doctors. I have a son in grade 10, and he's doing quite well. He had a 90. I brag about him all the time. He had a 96% average last year in grade 9. And he wants to be a medical doctor, but he's following all these doctors like you on YouTube, and he wants to be, I don't know, I call it the good doctor in terms of helping. When you said you're going to do this for free, like you don't need to be doing this. We all know that medical doctors and stuff, they make a good living, and you're doing this from the bottom of your heart. And I thank you. Like today, it's you've given me a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration to keep going. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we all can personalize this. And because I was able to personalize it with my mom, who thankfully was able to survive her breast cancer diagnosis 24 years ago. And if I knew this, when my wife lost her mom, if I knew this before that, I would have been able to provide a path for her. So, and she was such a wonderful person. And I like to share the story about how she, when we had our first child, Brandon, my oldest son, I literally remember me and my wife being in bed, and baby disappeared. She grabbed the baby, and she came back with the baby in hand, with plates in the other hand. So she had taken the baby away and she fed us breakfast in bed and took care of the baby. And I was like, oh my, and I had to be selfish when I say this. If she was only here today, oh my God, my entire child rearing experience, she probably would have left Mississippi and come all the way back and live with us in Chicago with her grandbaby. So this is for her. This is for my mom, who's still here, and I'll be seeing my mom later today. We're going to be hanging out with her for Thanksgiving. And for all the people in the world who have moms and fathers and aunts and uncles and babies who can also get cancer, who now have another way to help them overcome it and or extend their lives to have more time with their family. So for me, man, this is a mission. This is a purpose, just like this documentary we're working on. And I'm just blessed. And I really appreciate you, because you provide context. To have somebody that's actually going through it and fighting, and we can all fight together, is really inspirational. So I appreciate both of you guys.
Thank you. Do we have some time? I know it's Thanksgiving today. There's a couple questions. Do you have a little bit of time, Dr.?
Yeah, we got a little bit. Let's hit some of them.
Maybe do a little speed round. Thanks to Laurel. Signed the petition and shared it on Facebook. However, no one commented or liked it, and I'm wondering if they're seeing it or if it's blocked. I'll check into that. I'm not sure. It should be fine if you share it out on Facebook. I did see a whole bunch of signatures come in since yesterday, so it seems like people are getting it out there. So
one question to that, Kerry. They have to confirm their email, like that's being restated, right? Or verify their email. I don't remember even being told to. Like, I signed the petition, and I don't remember being verified the email. Can you check like if my signature is still on there?
Yes. Yeah, I'll check into that. Yeah, someone mentioned that earlier. You sign it, and I think they send you an email afterwards where you got to click a little button in the email.
I don't remember getting that email, but yeah.
Okay. I'll double check on that. Thank you. Random Hu Tao Simp said, I had colon cancer back in 2017. At that time is when I started high-fat carnivore and did a series of 30-day fasts within a 1-year period. Went from stage 4 all the way down to nothing. Wow.
That's giving me inspiration right there. I'm gonna get through this 8-day. I don't know about 30-day. My buddy Dwight introduced me to the 21-day fast when I first started my diagnosis. And there was that guy, Fred, from France, I believe, that Dr. Berg and Dr. Shafee's interviewed, and he did the 21-day fast. So I'm this gentleman, that random Hu Tao Sim. Thank you for sharing that. That's super awesome, and I'm gonna keep up with my game in fasting for sure.
Yeah.
Sandra Johnson says, sent the petition into the highwire.com in the hope that they will report on it. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, if you guys can share it, that's a huge thing. Hoping to get to 1 million signatures. Hoping to get to 1,000 by the end of the day today. That'd be great. Tons of comments like this. Shout out Dr. Hampton. Your explanation is so clear. Absolutely. Darth Carnivore, question. If anyone's read Jason Fung's Cancer Code book, thoughts on the Cancer Revolution episode? Notice Dr. Fung, Seyfried interviewed, but wasn't sure how their views intersected or overlapped.
I actually did not read the book in detail. My understanding though is that his they're both metabolic in terms of what they're foundational beliefs. So I'm not sure that there's any lack of clarity. Although I will say this, there's a nuance to this. So when you go down a path of what you think is the exact mechanism of any condition, it doesn't have to be perfectly matching what the next person is saying. But the concept of moving away from genetics to metabolic health is all that matters. And then we can then let the scientists and the doctors vet the different approaches, the different ways to address it. And I think that both of those clinicians and researchers are on that path. So I think that's what matters. I doubt very seriously that there's conflict there. I also want to emphasize that this approach gives you something actionable. And so you really want to really lean into this, even if we're wrong, because you becoming metabolically healthy is going to help you regardless of whether or not it attacks the cancer in the way we're describing. But I think it's fair to say it does. So I think you're safe to move in that direction. But did you read the Cancer Code yet, Jeff?
No, I need to read it. And I do follow Dr. Fung on YouTube quite a bit. And the Cancer Revolution, Kerry keeps telling me I need to watch it, and I need to sit down with my sons one night and watch it, because it's pretty touching. And that episode 1 sounds pretty awesome. And Kerry, at the end, you tell me it kind of comes together with all the people that have beat cancer, and it's a lot of different people, right?
Absolutely. And there's a link to that on our Cancer Action Plan, which is linked below, where we're trying to get 1 million signatures. There's a link to it's cancerevolution.film. And the first episode is all about Otto Warburg and metabolic therapy. And then, at the end of it, it shows a whole bunch of individuals diagnosed with cancer that use metabolic therapy, and they're just thriving right now. And that's just episode 1. So it's really good visuals and things like that. Highly suggest that one for sure. One Hope for All, Sandra, question, Kerry, will you be filming Professor Seyfried for Healing Humanity? Yes. We mentioned that, I think, yesterday. I actually spoke to Professor Seyfried yesterday. He invited us out to Boston College, where we're going to be filming him for the documentary. So we've already started filming Dr. Tony Hampton, and we want to film with him some more. And I'm hoping maybe as sort of a combination with Professor Seyfried, because the way you kind of distilled all this down is exactly what I'm looking to do in the documentary for sure.
Hey, Kerry, I just want to say, I want to give a shout out for One Hope for All. She's, I think it's a she, One Hope for All.
Sandra.
Sandra, she's watching all my videos, and she's commenting, and she's very, very inspiring. Your comment. She seems like a very faith-based person. So thank you, Sandra, for all those comments. And she gives me some tips sometimes too. So I just wanted to say thank you to her.
Yeah, likewise. She's wonderful. Kerry, Dr. Tony, Jeff, love you all. Thank you. Dr. Hampton does his homework. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Question for Jeff. Is Jeff taking his supplements when he does his fast, coffee, or what else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say about a year ago, when I was doing my 3-day and then I started my 5-day, I was, talking to Dwight and Dr. Reed, my naturopath. I wasn't taking my supplements. They just wanted me to get into that fasting state, see how my body reacted. But then as we learn how my body reacts and what my body deals with, even my buddy Dwight, he's like, no, you got to be taking certain supplements, like your electrolytes for sure. You got to be taking your sodium, your potassium, your magnesium, your iodine, your zinc, and then your vitamin D3 was, I'm starting to embed that. And actually now, just recently, my vitamin Bs, because chemo really kicks the poop out of your vitamin Bs, right? Yep. And destroys them. So I'm starting to take those now. And the first 2, I'm kind of just judging it on how I feel. The first 2 days, like Monday and Tuesday, I didn't take anything. Actually, Dwight's going to get mad at me. I didn't take anything yesterday, but I'm going to go home today and I'm going to take all those electrolytes and vitamins today. And I'm going to continue the rest of my fast, the next 4 days, taking them. along with an enhanced sodium. I'll do a shot of Redmond fine salt and no salt potassium to keep me feeling strong, my muscles strong. In terms of coffee, that's a very good question, because when I switched to carnivore keto, and by the way, I drank coffee black for like 15 years because there's a lot of benefits to black coffee, right? When you add stuff to it, like sweeteners and stuff, it destroys the nutrient content of the coffee from what I've read and studied. So I drank coffee black for like 15 years. But when I became diagnosed and I was entering the keto carnivore world, I started introducing heavy cream, like 35% cream, to get the fat content, right? And it started making my coffee just taste delicious. Like, I love it, right? It's my espresso and my heavy cream tastes delicious, and it's good fat, and I feel good, and it helps with a lot of things, with digestion and everything. And for bowel movements helps a lot, really. But when I'm fasting, for some reason, because when I'm fasting, I can't have the heavy cream. So I drink it black, and I'm not enjoying my coffee as much drinking it black. So because I spoiled myself with the heavy cream. So I really I think on Monday, I tried to go to Starbucks and I got a small espresso. I barely finished it because it was just black. So I'm not really enjoying it. So I'm just trying to stick to water as much as possible. Carbonated water. But it's mostly just as much plain water as possible.
Yeah, I'll add, when you mentioned B vitamins, most of us have familiarity with B vitamins because some people go get a B12 shot when they're tired, for example. So it's important that people understand that the B vitamins really are important for your mitochondria in order for so when you're doing those electron transport chains and things like that in your body, that's very important. If you're missing B vitamins, then steps in that process won't work very well. So our bodies need nutrients to function well. And that's kind of why this animal-based diet is so important, because you get all the essential nutrients that you need by eating keto or carnivore. And some people may need electrolytes because you are going to have to make sure you replace the salt, magnesium, potassium. And you can do that with your diet, but some people that's the only thing you really need to think about, in my opinion. And I just think that just understanding how the body works is so foundational. But the key, again, if you eat real whole foods, pretty much animal-based to the extent you can do that, you're pretty much going to get all you need. So I just want to put that in front of people. And I agree, when you make the coffee with the extra stuff, it is more enjoyable. And yeah, us carnivores, we like some of the stuff that we were enjoying previously, but we can kind of make it close to that by having things like cream, but we have to modify based on our individual situation. Like, I don't do coffee regularly because I have an irritable bowel history and it irritates my stomach. But if I could drink coffee every day, I probably would, because I love coffee.
Hey, Carnivore Brothers, awesome YouTube channel. These guys came out to meet Dr. Tony Hampton and myself at our Chicago meetup.
Yes.
Follow up to the question above, while on a fast, this is a good question for me too. While on a fast, are there negative signs to be aware that may indicate you should come off your fast?
Yeah.
I'll
just talk about my experience first. Dwight's always told me this too, because I was going to engage in a 21-day fast in the summertime, and then I think my father got put in the hospital and he ended up passing away. So I didn't. There was a lot of things that interrupted me when I was off chemo. I should have did my 21-day fast, and I think the most I did was 6.5 days, and then I ate, and then I did another 4 days, and then I ate, and then I did like a 2 or 3 days. So I didn't really get to my 21-day fast that I wanted to, and I probably should be breaking it up with more like bone broth and stuff like that. But Dwight always said to me, if you're feeling like you need to eat and you're into your like 4, 5, 6 day fast, just eat. Like, just especially with especially if you're carnivore, right? Like, I don't think there's any worry to like but the thing is, the more and more, I think Kerry can attest to this too, the more and more we get into the fast, like on my Friday, I actually feel guilty of eating because I'm feeling pretty optimal. Like, I'm feeling pumped. I got other things, like my bottle comes off Friday, so I'm pretty pumped up. But then I eat because I want to eat with my family members, my sons and my wife on the weekends. But I feel guilty because I'm feeling optimal. So the negative signs when fasting, the first day is tough for sure. Okay. The second day, you kind of get in a moderate state of ketosis and you're starting to feel better. For me, my third day is always my chemo. So I don't even know what I'm feeling from that. Like I know it's a little bit up and down, but today I'm feeling pretty good right now. And tomorrow I know I'm going to feel even better. So the negative signs, you gotta go with what your body's kind of telling you and how you're feeling. But like Dr. Hampton said, like carnivore and being in ketosis, even nutritional ketosis through carnivore, like it's beneficial no matter what, like whether you have diseases or whether you're even if you're metabolically healthy, like if you're on carnivore, you're going to have no problem doing these fasts as much.
Yeah, it's
right,
much
Dr. Hampton?
easier. The transition, like I went from low carb keto to carnivore. So every time I made the transition, it was kind of easy. And I would even argue when I went from a plant-based diet to a animal-based diet and I did low carb, the transition was easier because I was at least eating real whole foods, right? So I think where you start matters. Obviously, when you're fasting, there are symptoms that can sneak up on you. One of the comments mentioned nausea, right? So if you're taking like electrolytes while you're fasting and you're still feeling nauseated, that could be a sign that, I've hydrated, I've done electrolytes, I'm not feeling. That could be a sign that that's probably not a good time to continue. Obviously, if you hydrate, you shouldn't have palpitations, but I've had patients have palpitations. And when they start having symptoms like that, we start to think about not doing it. If you get extremely weak, you feeling a little off is probably okay. But if you get to a week when you're just feeling just so weak you can barely stand, that's a problem. And you should be cautious in that setting. And then hopefully most people will eventually learn how their hunger cues work. And there's a point when you just feel just famished, you just got to eat. And that may be for some people something to consider. But for most people, they should be able to distinguish between most hunger is just being dehydrated and you're thirsty, right? So if you can just hydrate, your electrolytes are okay. So just use caution because everything we do in life is risk reward, right? So you may be doing this for autophagy, maybe you're not even dealing with cancer. And you got to start asking yourself, if I feel like crap, then I need to maybe reconsider if this is for me.
Good stuff. Lucy D asks, family member after radiotherapy developed a fatty meat aversion. 75 male with prostate. He hasn't got much more weight to lose. He was fat adapted prior.
That's interesting. A fatty meat aversion. I'm not sure if I can give because I'm not a professional that deals with cancer every day. I have not seen that. I will say that so often people stop tolerating fat and it comes out of nowhere, right? And usually these things will pass. But I just can't connect the dots between the radiation treatment and fat tolerance. That seems a little different. But unless there's some effect on, like when you think about what helps us to break down fat, we think about our bile. And so if there's an issue where the bile has been impacted somehow and I'm not able to process the fat, that would come to mind. And maybe the radiation impacted the biliary tree or the liver or the gallbladder. That's what comes to mind, but I can't think of any other thing that comes to mind right away.
All right. Dr. Tony, Kerry, and Jeff, what's on your holiday feast menu for today?
Wow. Yeah. They have the easy answer.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about food right now because we're fasting, Dr. Hampton. You can't tell us what you're eating.
All right. Well, I'll just say this: I'm not breaking my carnivore lifestyle. My wife asks me every holiday, "Are you gonna be a ketovore today?" And my wife's more of a ketovore. She's a Nisha, and I'm a Ken Berry, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do, because I'm having, when you're feeling like so good, you're like, why would I want to deviate from that? To me, the holidays are about getting together, fellowshipping, talking about the relatives who are not there, and having a good time.
Right.
So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm not gonna,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then hopefully my mom won't, kind of push the dressing in front of me and things like that. I think at this point she knows how I roll, so she's not gonna do that. But yeah, I think that's the message to everybody. You do you, right? Don't feel obligated to do anything other than what you want to do. If you decide to indulge and your body tolerates those indulgences for a day or two, have at it. For people who have processed food addictions, I would not do that, because it's going to trigger you. And you decide what you want to do. And the other part is, know what the family's doing. So if you're going to visit and they have something that doesn't align with your dietary pattern, you can always bring that. We always bring the things that we can eat so that there's no issue. So just start to think it through, plan, and always tell people when they question you, they look at you like you're a unicorn. Just say, you know what? I have never felt this good in my life. I'm getting off medicines and my mental clarity is there. And I just want to be able to continue that. So you guys enjoy what you're doing, but I just want to stay in that lane of healing. And let other people stay in their lane. And some people will then want to do what you're doing, others won't. But this is about adults being adults and allowing other adults to be adults. And so we want to live in a world where nobody has to be indoctrinated into other people's dietary patterns. I would not want my kids to be in New York on Monday and Friday where they couldn't eat meat. And I don't want to live in a world where on Monday and Friday they can only eat, where they only eat meat instead of vegetables. It shouldn't go either way. They should be given a choice, and then we educate them about those choices, and then they make their own decisions.
Love that. Question. I'm interested in Dr. Hampton's approach to mental health. My family member is hospitalized on strong medications and I believe misdiagnosed. There are no low-carb dietary choices and she's not improving.
If you're in the hospital, they're probably giving you the exact foods that's going to make your mental health worse, right?
Yeah.
Now, and so for Jeanette, I would say for your doctors, we want to expose them to the study Keto for Refractory Mental Illness. That author is both Dr. Georgia Ede, E-D-E, and Dr. Eric Westman, and some others. In that study, they found that if you are on a keto diet, and of course, carnivore is keto, they found that 100% of the study participants, these are hospitalized people, just like your family member, 100% got improvement in symptoms, not 1, 10%, 20, 100%. 96% for those who needed to lose weight, lost weight. And just under 50% had, I think it was 46% were able to go into remission. Now, understand, when you're hospitalized with mental health issues, you're going to do better by the time you leave, but the chances that you're in remission is very low. So the diagnoses that they were in the hospital for were depression, bipolar, and schizophrenia. So imagine somebody that has schizophrenia, you put them into remission before they leave the hospital. And the last thing, about 64% had a reduction in their medication while hospitalized. So imagine a diet that's so effective that it doesn't just make you feel better. It doesn't just, let you go into remission, but you actually do that while reducing your medicines. It's just like a person who has diabetes and you're saying, oh, their A1C is like 5.0. Oh, by the way, they were on insulin before we started. Now they're off insulin and their A1C is going down. So it's not good for the drug companies, but it's phenomenal for the patient. It's phenomenal for the health system and the families who have to, interact with a person who has bipolar. So for me, my approach is simply to say to a patient, you do not heal from mental health concerns with medication. That is a Band-Aid, and it's okay. Dr. Georgia Ede herself, psychiatrist from Harvard, she'll say some of my patients get off medicines, some get reductions in medicines, and maybe a third end up, not having to stay on medicines, but they do better. It doesn't matter where you land. I just want to make sure the person in front of me with mental health concerns is able to function in society and to be a father and to be a son and to be a husband or a wife and function. So whether they take medicines or not is not the issue. The issue is, can we give them a metabolic treatment that's going to heal them? And so my approach is to give them a recommendation to work on their diet. Of course, I make sure they see people to talk to. Of course, I encourage them to exercise. Of course, I tell them to reduce stress and get sleep. But the diet has had the biggest impact on my patients.
I just wanted to add to that. That's the reason we're doing this documentary is I had horrible depression for 10, 15 years and was on every medication. Carnivore was the only thing that ever truly helped me. And that's one of the biggest comments I get doing these YouTube videos over the last 6 months or so. I've heard so many stories of people overcoming mental health issues, not just depression either, but schizophrenia. If you really think about schizophrenia, that's one of the scariest things for someone to have. So hopeless. And I've heard stories of people overcoming that just by eating proper human diet. It's amazing. Anxiety is another big one. It's remarkable. Like so many people, like I was so anxious before I went on Carnivore, and it's like within a couple of weeks for somebody, it's different for everybody, but for quite a few people, it's like a couple of weeks they're able to overcome those things that I and others suffered from for years and years and years.
Kerry, to expand on that also, I'm not sure if this was in any of my post videos, but I think, Kerry, I remember talking to you about you. When I first went off work, like I said, I got diagnosed April 2022. I went off work January 31st, 2022. And I went into my principal's office and said, hey, I don't know what's wrong with me. My family doctor on a phone diagnosed me with being mentally depressed and having anxiety and a sleep disorder. And he prescribed me those pills, the mental depression pills and anxiety pill and sleeping pills. So I went home off of work. I had stage 4 cancer. I didn't know that. I went home taking these pills for 2 months, sitting at home, diagnosing myself. Right when I diagnosed myself, I got off those. I go, I don't need this crap. I was frustrated taking these pills for one. Okay. I knew that, hey, my mental state, yeah, it was being affected, but it was being affected by my stage 4 colon cancer. Right. I got rid of those pills. And the doctor, my family doctor said, oh, just wean off those pills. I didn't even wean off them. I just stopped taking them. And I'll be honest with you right now, and everybody knows this, for me to be doing my channel and share my story, I'm mentally pretty strong right now. Like I feel like my mental clarity is the best it's ever been. And actually, like 21 years of teaching, I'm pretty focused and I'm clear. And I contribute it to my lifestyle changes, right? My diet for one. Okay. Like all that inflammation, I'm trying to decrease as much as possible, even up here in the brain. Right. And it's making me mentally clear on a day-to-day basis with someone that has stage 4 cancer.
That's right. Yeah.
The best doctors in the world are right here on YouTube. I agree.
Yeah.
Carnivorous dude. Hey, Ed. Ed came out to the Chicago meetup too, and we met with him. Happy Thanksgiving, fellas. Thanks for this today. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. $5 super sticker. Then looks like we got one more question here from Amazed and Grateful. Hubby, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Hubby and I are grilling bone-in grass-finished ribeyes because turkey is gross without all the fixings. Happy Thanksgiving. Thankful for you all. Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Kerry, I did you see my chat? I put in there, I have 2 questions for Dr. Hampton.
Oh, I didn't see that yet. No, I think I'm on the other page.
I went on like my channel and did it, and then I went on yours. Well,
okay, cool.
So I have 2 questions, and it was kind of, it kind of led into like what you're eating for Thanksgiving this weekend a little bit, Dr. Hampton. But my first question, before I get to that, the eating thing is, I'm very curious. Were you an athlete growing up? Are you an athlete? You look like a baller. You look like a baller. Look like you were a point guard to me.
Man. And it's so funny because, and don't bring up the Chicago Bulls right now. They're trying to trade Levine, and it's horrible. But so we'll see. But yeah, in fact, that's my favorite sport to watch is basketball. I just had this conversation with my wife yesterday, and it was this ideal of why not basketball? And I grew up on the west side of Chicago, arguably, you know, some would say a tough neighborhood. And what I found is that the kids that were in trouble more were on the basketball court, and I was blessed to grow up across the street from a tennis court. So I literally walked outside my apartment and there was a tennis court. So I became a really good tennis player. I played for Lane Tech High School, which is one of the high schools in Chicago. I played for my Park District, played a little bit for my Xavier, my college. And so tennis was my sport. So I definitely was an athlete. I definitely played some baseball as well. But tennis was a sport that kind of kept me. So I'm a huge fan of sports. There's three things I know. I know the medical stuff, I know sports, and I know a little bit about politics, but I can't talk about politics on.
No, we can't.
Don't want to go there. But
No.
those are the three things that kind of entertain me when I'm kind of not being a doctor. I just kind of listen to politics and sports stuff and have fun there. So thanks.
That's awesome. That's awesome because I feel like I have a lot in common with you.
Yeah.
As
Absolutely.
an athlete,
Absolutely.
and you know, and I asked this question because I'm going to lead into my next question, but because I coach and I teach and I deal with youth all the time, I think I would love to do, and maybe you keep doing your research, I would love to do another podcast with you where we can delve into carnivore for athletes, for young athletes, right? Because I'm working with these kids all the time, and Dwight and I are coaching them, and we don't push anything on it. And talk about choices. You know, you want to give your kids choices and stuff. And that's why I was gonna say the same thing is, and I do the same thing with my sons. My two sons are choosing to be carnivore, animal-based, ketovore a little bit. They're doing it because they want, like, I get it. They're watching their dad go through what they go through, but they're choosing the right choices. And my sons are performing on a day-to-day basis, not only on the soccer pitch, the basketball courts, in school, they're performing. So my question to you is: you mentioned you have sons. You have kids yourself.
I have two sons. Yep.
2 sons. So we're very similar. We got 2 sons. Are they a bit old? Like, how old are your sons?
They're 24 and 26.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So 2 years apart. My sons are 2 years apart, 15 and 13.
Wow.
And that's something we could talk about on a later podcast about, you know, the influence that maybe you and I have on our sons and the influence you and I have on athletes, especially the athletes that I'm working with. Because you say it, like it's the babies, it's these kids. This is why we're doing this healing humanity, right, Kerry?
That's right.
That's the main thing, right? Because we've gone through this horrible world where we're living in this world where, you know, our lifestyle is horrible, right? And it's causing all these cancers for people like me that are young, and that 35-year-old I met yesterday. But let's try to fix these kids. Let's try. And Dwight, I say to Dwight all the time, I go, Dwight, because he always wants to help people. And I say to him, hey, maybe some of these kids don't need to be fixed. He goes, no, they all need to be fixed. They really do. Yeah. And we're blind to it, and we're covering it up, and we're putting Band-Aids on things. They all need to be fixed. And it's going to help with educating the world and parents as well, right? On what they can do to encourage their kids to live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, the benefits are beyond like what you would think, right? Because my kids, when they started eating more of an animal-based diet, their grades shot through the roof. They just went straight up. When they had mental clarity, they were able to focus, and they ended up doing this towards not during the high school years where they played for a school, Providence St. Mel's, they were on a basketball team. But man, if I had really hit this hard when they were younger, I think they would have had the benefits, because when you're on an animal-based diet, you get those essential nutrients, though, that essential amino acid that helps you not only build muscle, but to repair and heal. And so what happened, what happened when they went back to school, they both went up literally, a whole point. So a 3.0 became a 4.0, a 2.5 became a 3.5. But the same thing would happen on the athletic field. And if you want a kid to stand out from their peers and do something that's cheap, easy, you give them that essential amino acid that you find in animal foods, and it would do wonders. So I think us messaging that to our kids, and kids are very astute, and they tend to hear the chatter, particularly in this setting, because that's where they live. And guess what the messaging is, especially when you think about the covering of the mouth that we saw from Dr. Eric Berg saying they're trying to censor me. And now we're going to use the World Health Organization to recommend diets, and that's going to be grains and low fat and all of that nonsense. That's going to be harmful to our babies. So we have to counter that narrative by putting content out here, like the documentary, that's going to say to them, it's okay to eat this way. Saturated fat's not going to cause heart disease. It's not going to cause cancer to eat meat. And then they'll have the foundational food to be healthy. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. And
yeah,
we'll do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. No, absolutely. And I'm just going to expanding on what you just said, but I don't want to talk about it too much longer because I think we could have a whole episode on this.
I know.
It's that plate that we're putting in front of our kids. Like parents could say, "Oh, my kid eats a lot of meat," but then you look at their plate and it's the plate's got one little small portion of meat. Then it's got potatoes, rice, whatever, veggies, and there's huge portions of all those things. So for them to say, hey, my kid eats a lot of meat, yeah, but then they're ruining all that. They're ruining the meat part by all the other things in big proportions, right?
That's right.
And sorry, I'm sorry to mock. I love Thanksgiving, and I love Thanksgiving for all the reasons you guys love it, right? For the family, for the faith-based connection, for the spirituality,
Absolutely.
for everything. But the one thing I don't like about Thanksgiving, and I used to brag about this as a health teacher, I used to show my plate on how colorful it was and filled up with all these. Like Thanksgiving does that, right? Kerry says it. It's for those sugar addicted drunks, right? And yeah, we got a turkey, but why not just eat majority of the turkey instead of putting all that the stuffing and the cranberry sauce and all that stuff on there, which that stuff gets eaten more than the turkey, to be honest with you. And that's what ends up being a little bit disturbing when we learn about what we're learning about.
And let me say this, Kerry, before I know we're going to wrap up. Listen, if you have the ham that's not covered in honey and you have the turkey, and if you're not carnivore and you're a keto, you have greens, and you don't have cornbread next to the greens, and you have some string beans or cabbage and all these other non-starchy vegetables. You can still work with that. If you're a keto person, you can make a keto-friendly cake. But the whole point is, let's go to a traditional meal. Now, where I'm from, we call it dressing. So other people call it stuffing, but that's going to be 40 carbs. So now we're at 40, right? We're going to put a little cranberry sauce on it. I'm going to be generous and just say 20 carbs for the cranberry sauce. We know that's just nothing but fructose corn syrup. Oh, we like macaroni and cheese, so let's put that in there. Now we're at 100 carbs. And some people like spaghetti. Maybe they're doing that now. We're not even going to add that because maybe they do that, or they do the mac and cheese or the spaghetti. Oh, we're going to have some bread, so that's going to be another 30 carbs right there. Oh, we got to have a little potato salad. I mean, come on, it's Thanksgiving. That's another 40. I mean, I'm just looking at 170 carbs with the first plate. I'm not talking about the pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie. I'm not talking about a lot of our friends and family drink sugary drinks. So you could anticipate that the average person on Thanksgiving, one plate, and we celebrate 2 plates on Thanksgiving, right? That's the tradition. I'm going to get one, leave a room for later. You easily be at anywhere from 200 to 300 carbs per plate. And if I'm a person with if I have a family member that has diabetes, and you divide that 200 by 4, that's 50 teaspoons of sugar. That's how you convert the carbs to sugar. Would it be loving them well to do that? Would that make sense to you to give them something? And then what happens in my world, they end up in my ER. They end up at my clinic a day or two after the holidays because they felt obligated, or their family didn't know the things that we're teaching. So we have to do better. And there are plenty of alternatives that can help people eat in a way that resembles what they're used to. You just have to learn how to make those sides carnivore friendly. Maria Emmerich has a cookbook that's carnivore. They have the ketogenic woman, who we both are loving and feel, and you can find ways to work around these poison foods. Flour is not food. That's what your pasta is. It's flour. If you're lucky, they put egg in there, but it's just flour. That's not food, and your body deserves better. So thanks, Jeff, for emphasizing that and asking that question as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Man, I wish we could go on, but I know we got to wrap things up now. Got the holiday. So I can't thank you guys enough. Jeff's channel is Blessings on My Journey. This was a blessing today for sure. Dr. Tony Hampton, I got links to both of their channels in the description below. I'm going to update too. So we're trying to get 1 million signatures on the Cancer Action Plan, but this was like, I can't thank you enough, Dr. Hampton. This was like a master class. Seriously, this is I really think this is going to help a lot of people. I'm going to put this front and center on our Cancer Action Plan so people can watch this video. And then I'm going to link to the video you did with Martha and Paul Merrick and FLCCC. I'm going to put that on there as well. So thank you guys so much.
I think even creating, sorry to add on there, because the educational piece that Dr. Hampton delivered to us today was like the best science class ever for me, the best. But he also, all the resources, all the books that you can buy, and all the even the recipe books, like the ketogenic woman. Like, I think that resource list we can keep adding to that too. So thank you very much, Dr. Hampton.
No problem, guys.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we'll end it there. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. And check out these guys' channel before you leave. Check them out. Subscribe to both of them. Doing wonderful work, inspiring people and changing lives for sure. So thank you guys, and thank you everyone for watching. Appreciate all the questions. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
See ya.